Hey everyone, welcome back to Warlands. Today we're going to pull apart one of the most terrifying and most successful war machines in human history, the Mongol Empire. In less than a century, steppe riders from Central Asia smashed through the Khwarezmian Empire, humiliated the Jin dynasty, shook Europe, and forced even the strongest Islamic and Chinese states to change the way they fought. People often say the Mongols were just good horse archers, but that's not the real story. The real story is this: they built a system, a military ecosystem, where recruitment, training, command, logistics, intelligence, and terror all reinforced each other. Today we're going to see how that system worked, why it kept winning even against bigger and richer empires, and why it eventually slowed down. Stay to the end, because I'll show you three things modern armies still copy from the Mongols. If you like long-form military analysis, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. This is Warlands. Let's ride out to the steppe. 1. The strategic problem of the steppe. Most great armies in history started from rich lands, river valleys, cities. The Mongols didn't. They came from a hard, wide, low-density environment. The Eurasian steppe, where population was small, but mobility was everything. On the steppe, you survived not by building walls, but by moving faster than danger. So even before they became an empire, Mongol tribes were already training the one thing most settled peoples were bad at: mounted warfare as daily life. Every boy learned to ride, to shoot from horseback, to chase animals over long distances. This meant that when Genghis Khan began unifying the tribes, he did not have to build a cavalry from zero. He already had a population pre-adapted to mobile war. This is the first big insight. Environment shapes doctrine. Sedentary civilizations built infantry and walls. Nomads built horses and composite bows. So when these two types of societies clashed, it often looked like one side was superior. But really, they were just optimized for different terrains. 2. Genghis Khan's first genius: replacing tribal loyalty. Most nomadic confederations before the Mongols failed for one reason. Loyalty stayed with the clan, not the leader. Genghis Khan solved that. He broke up the old tribal groupings and reorganized his warriors into decimal units: tens, hundreds, thousands, and tumens of 10,000. A man no longer fought because this is my uncle's banner. He fought because this is my unit in the Khan's army. This sounds administrative, but militarily, it was revolutionary. It meant the Khan could move units around like chess pieces, mix veterans with new men, and create balanced forces that didn't disintegrate when one noble got angry. It also meant he could punish disobedience at scale. If a unit ran in battle, the whole unit could be decimated or replaced. So the second insight: organizational reform can be more decisive than a new weapon. 3. Universal conscription of the steppe. Another thing people miss: the Mongol Empire didn't just conquer people, it absorbed them. After a victory, Genghis and his successors would take craftsmen, siege engineers, translators, doctors, mapmakers, and put them into the system. Chinese engineers for siege warfare, Persian administrators for taxes, Turkish scribes for writing. So the empire didn't stay purely Mongol. It became militarily Mongol, but technically multinational. This gave them something most nomad powers never had: a permanent toolkit for every type of war. Want to raid across the steppe? Use core Mongol cavalry. Want to break a city with thick walls? Bring the Chinese and Khwarezmian engineers. Want to run a conquered province? Use Persian bureaucrats. This is doctrinal flexibility at the imperial level. Training and the composite bow. Let's talk about the weapon everybody knows: the composite bow. This wasn't a cheap militia bow. It was a laminated weapon of wood, horn, and sinew, with high draw weight, short enough to use on horseback, and powerful enough to hit effectively at 150-200 meters in the hands of a skilled archer. But the bow was only half the story. The other half was the lifetime of training. Steppe riders practiced shooting in motion, turning in the saddle, even the famous Parthian shot style, firing backward as they retreated. This made possible the signature Mongol tactic: approach, shower with arrows, refuse close combat, withdraw before countercharge, and repeat until the enemy's formation broke. To a heavy, slow medieval army, this felt like fighting smoke. So here's the fourth insight. They didn't win because of a superior weapon. They won because the whole society was trained to use that weapon from childhood. That is very hard for a settled empire to copy quickly. Command and control, the hidden weapon. If you've ever wondered, how did Mongol armies coordinate over such long distances? This is it. They use multiple layers of communication. Flag and signal systems in battle. Messengers on fresh horses using relay posts. Prearranged battle plans with strict timings. They also trained commanders to act on intent, not just on orders. Genghis Khan gave his generals clear objectives. Destroy this enemy, take this city, meet here on this date, and then let them decide the route. This is very modern. European armies centuries later would call this mission command. The Mongols were already doing it in the 13th century. So the fifth insight: speed in war is not just riding fast. It's deciding fast and transmitting that decision across the force. 6. Operational art, feigned retreat and multi-axis attacks. Now we get to the fun part: how they actually fought. Mongol armies loved the feigned retreat. They would engage, inflict some casualties, then pretend to break. Undisciplined or overconfident enemies, like many Khwarezmian or Rus princes, would pursue, losing formation, stretching their line. Then the Mongols would wheel around, hit the flanks, and crush them in detail. But that was only the tactical trick. Operationally, the Mongols also loved multi-axis invasions. Instead of sending one big slow army, they sent several fast columns, each capable of independent action, converging on the same target from different directions. This confused defenders because they didn't know which army was the main army. When you don't know the enemy's main effort, you can't concentrate your own forces. Result: defenders get defeated in pieces. So the sixth insight: they turned the enemy's lack of information into a weapon. 7. Logistics on horseback. The underrated advantage, Kiwa. People think nomads don't have logistics. That's wrong. They just have a different kind of logistics. Mongol warriors usually had multiple horses, rotating them to avoid exhaustion, which massively extended daily marching range. They could live off the land better than heavy medieval armies, drinking mare's milk, eating dried meat, hunting. They didn't need slow baggage trains. This meant they could do something most armies couldn't: keep pressure on a fleeing enemy for days. Most medieval armies could win a battle, but not pursue far. The Mongols could win, pursue, annihilate, and because they used relay stations across the empire, they could move information as fast as their armies. 7th insight: sustained operational tempo is itself a weapon. If you can keep moving after contact, you break enemy morale and organization. Siege warfare, borrowed, then perfected. Here's the part many people don't know. The Mongols were not just a field army. They were horrifyingly good at siege warfare. Once they started integrating Chinese and Muslim engineers, at Zhongdu and Xisha, they used catapults, traction trebuchets, counterweight trebuchets, fire weapons, even early gunpowder devices in some campaigns. They also used prisoners and local populations as human shields to approach walls, which was psychological warfare and a way to force quick surrender. Cities that resisted too long were sometimes massacred, not out of random cruelty, but as a message to the next city. So the eighth insight. They combined the mobility of nomads with the siege science of settled empires. That's why even walled civilizations fell. 9. Psychological warfare. If you read the chronicles, you see a pattern. Before attacking a city, Mongol envoys would offer terms: submit, pay tribute, give troops and craftsmen. And you live, refuse, kill the envoys, resist too long, and the city is destroyed. This created a predictable reputation. News traveled fast. So when the next city heard the Mongols are coming, they didn't just think about fighting. They thought about the last city that didn't surrender. Fear is a force multiplier. If 10 cities surrender because 2 cities were annihilated, that is economical warfare. 9th insight. The Mongols didn't want to fight everyone. They wanted everyone to believe fighting was pointless. 10. Adapting to different fronts. One mark of a great military system is whether it can adapt to different theaters. The Mongols did. In North China, they learned to fight in more settled terrain, using Chinese defectors and engineers. In Persia and the Islamic world, they kept mobile warfare but relied more on local administration. In the grasslands and Eastern Europe, they used winter campaigns, exploiting frozen rivers as highways, something Western knights rarely did. This ability to learn from the conquered is rare. Many empires force their way of war on everyone. The Mongols pulled useful parts from everyone instead. 10th insight. A military that can copy is harder to stop than a military that can only invent. 11. Why did it slow down? So, if they were that good, why didn't they keep conquering forever? 3 main reasons. First, the empire fragmented after the Great Khans. Once unity is gone, the advantages of centralized planning and empire-wide logistics are gone too. Second, the farther they went from the steppe, the harder it was to maintain the same operational tempo. Jungle, mountains, humid climates, like in Southeast Asia, and were bad environments for steppe cavalry. Third, their enemies learned. Mamluk cavalry at Ainjalut 1260 used terrain and timing to blunt Mongol mobility. Fortified gunpowder using Chinese states later on also made it harder. So the 11th insight. No military system dominates forever. Once enemies copy your methods and deny your terrain, your advantages shrink. 12. What modern militaries still copy. Let's bring this forward to the modern age. You can actually see Mongol-style thinking in 3 modern areas. 1. Mission command. Give a clear objective. Let subordinates execute with initiative. German Auftrags tactic and modern NATO doctrine echo this. 2. Operational maneuver groups. Soviet deep battle, multiple columns converging. Very Mongol in spirit. 3. Information and intimidation. Modern powers also use reputation, shock, and fast strikes to make enemies surrender before a big fight. So the 12th insight. Even in the age of drones, speed of decision, flexible units, and psychological dominance still matter. So, what made the Mongols unbeatable for a time? It wasn't one thing. Not the bow, not the horse, not just Genghis Khan. It was the system. A society trained for mounted war, an army reorganized away from tribal loyalties, commanders trusted to act on intent, logistics that kept armies moving for weeks, siege skills borrowed from conquered peoples, and a reputation for mercy if you submitted, Sedentary if you didn't. Most empires have 1 or 2 of those. The Mongols had all of them at once. If you want the next episode to be on how blitzkrieg really worked and what was just post-war myth, or the real Soviet deep battle plan in World War II? Drop it in the comments. This is War Lens. Thanks for riding with me. I'll see you in the next campaign.